Time to let it rip. Some compare Michigan's new right-to-work law to slavery. We'll debate that later. But first, a high-ranking Republican is under fire for his remarks about gay marriage.
We're talking about Dave Ajema, a national committeeman from the Grand Rapids area. At a Republican meeting recently, he was recorded saying gay people want to get married because they're dying of AIDS and want free health care from their spouse's employer. Take a listen.
I stand for traditional marriage, not homosexual marriage. Why? Because the family unit is the basic unit of government and society. When you tear the family apart, you tear the country apart. Folks, they want free medical because they're dying between 38 and 44 years old. It's a biggie for them. So to me, it's a moral issue. It's a biblical issue. Traditional marriage is where it should be, and that is in our platform. So people that are opposed on that issue within our party are wrong.
Now, even though several high-ranking Michigan Republicans denounced Ajema, including Governor Rick Snyder, the party was expected to censure him in Lansing yesterday during a state GOP meeting.
But that didn't happen. In fact, they didn't even the controversy. They did, however, give Ajema a standing ovation when he spoke. All right, joining us to talk about this, the Executive Director of the Michigan Democratic Party, Garrett Arwa.
And next to him, Stacey Swimp, a minister and political activist who says Ajema has nothing to apologize for. And Stacey, we know your mindset is that you support traditional marriage, but do you support hate? Because that is really what those comments were made of.
Well, I think that we have a climate of political correctness that makes the term hate speech very subjective to special agendas. I don't think Dave Ajema is the issue. I think the issue is marriage protection. The other issue is that we do have, look at the Massachusetts Department of Health Care, the most pro-homosexual Department of Health in the country. Even they are saying through their studies that homosexuals are dying disproportionately of HIV, suicide, and other issues. Therefore, there are concerns, I imagine, if you're in that demographic about access to health care. The General Accounting Office has said the same thing. That is not a Republican or Democrat office. That is an agency within the federal government. They're talking about the fact that this demographic has been seeking access to health care benefits. That is a reasonable conversation. Dave Ajema is not the issue. At the end of the day, marriage protection, health care, and the fact that should the American people be on the dole for that kind of taxation, and finally the GOA has said that it will cost $898 million to add entitlements to health care benefits.
And that might be the issue. But isn't it a problem, maybe perhaps how he is saying that? I mean, you support his comments.
I support marriage protection. I agree that at the end of the day, we're still talking about health care benefits. To me, at the end of the day, it's not about Dave Ajema. It's not about some guy from West Michigan. Guess what? Most of the people in the state of Michigan, particularly in the city of Detroit, which is predominantly Democrat, actually believe in marriage protection. Same thing in California.
Well, let me ask Garrett, the discussion really, I think, is about same-sex marriage. Aren't a lot of people in your own party opposed to same-sex marriage, especially the religious types? I mean, do you worry that the Democrats are alienating people of your own party?
Well, I think that we have seen a tremendous shift both in the state of Michigan and nationally on the question of marriage equality. And I do want to say that I do think Dave Ajema is part of the problem. If we're going to talk about marriage equality versus traditional marriage, we need to have a responsible dialogue that's not filled with hate speech, that's not filled with bigotry, that's not filled with misinformation. We have seen in the polls from 2004 to now there's been a tremendous shift in the state of Michigan and nationally, and an overwhelming majority of people support marriage equality, and obviously our party does as well.
Not black Americans. Most black Americans do not. In California, the Marriage Protection Act was supported by 70% of black Americans. You are the leader of a party where most black Americans support marriage protection. In North Carolina, when marriage protection was passed, guess what? It was black pastors and predominantly black Democrats.
Right, let me get back to Ajema real quick, though. I want to get Garrett's. Should Ajema resign or be kicked off the Republican National Committee platform?
He should. Again, this is yet another example of a pattern that we're seeing from Dave Ajema. Now, if we look at specifically these comments that we're talking about now, it is outrageous to say that members of the LGBT community are pushing for free medical care because they are dying of AIDS between the ages of 38 and 44. Democrats have come out against it. Right. Republicans, from congressional members to precinct delegates, have come out against it. Even American Airlines broke company protocol and said that Dave Ajema's comments were baseless.
Even Governor Rick Snyder has come out against this. Stacey, are you worried that this is dividing, this sort of extreme politics is dividing the Republican Party?
I'm not concerned about the Republican Party. At the end of the day, if you're so concerned about the comments of Dave Agema, meaning the Democrat Party, let's ask Harry Reid and Joe Biden to resign. What about when Joe Biden made comments about y'all people in slavery? At the end of the day, I've never seen a Democrat Party hold your own officials accountable for toxic, divisive concepts, behaviors, and comments. At the end of the day, the Democrat Party still wants to tell the Republican Party how to manage their people. When you ask Harry Reid and Joe Biden to resign, and Nancy Pelosi and the same people who were accusing Tea Party congressional members of wanting to lynch black people, really? Can you prove that? And if you can't, could they resign? So there's a double standard here.
And so what I do want to say is I think that this misdirection is a classic example of Republicans who either don't want to come out and say Dave Agema needs to resign, because if we're going to build a state based on welcoming and tolerance that's good for the economy, we need to make sure that we're holding our elected officials and our party leaders accountable. And it's funny that he doesn't want to address the actual...
I'm not representing the Republican Party. I am here as a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and as a politically active Christian.
Stacey, wait a minute. You wrote in a recent email, you said that the moment America completely embraces same-sex marriage as a norm is the moment God will take his hand off America, and we will be a nation of lawlessness and bondage.
That is exactly right. But I spoke that as a minister of the gospel. I did not speak that as a political activist on behalf of the Republican Party.
Are gays that much of a threat to the civilized world?
Well, let me say it this way. Without social stability, there is no basis for a strong economy. Strong families are the basis for social stability. Man and woman, that is the basis for family. If we begin to do away with strong families, if we begin to sanction and legalize things that stop procreation, then you tell me, what direction is our society going? And I'll tell you what it's going. It's going where we saw. It's going where we saw in Utah.
So 2 points. One, we do not believe, and a majority of Americans are starting to not believe, that marriage equality is a threat to strong families. We actually think that they help increase the amount of strong families. 2, on the point of how marriage equality and how benefits and rights for the LGBT community helps the economy, many Fortune 500 companies are offering domestic partner benefits because they know that it makes them more attractive. The best talent. That's what we want for Michigan. That's what we're pushing for. And when we've got party officials that are spewing bigotry, it does not make this state welcome for the best talent, for the strongest families, for intolerance. That's why we think Dave Agema should go.
I believe that the left has created a political correct climate that said that anything that stands for truth, anything that stands for individual liberty, anything that stands for freedom of speech is hate speech. Well, that is not what our country
And I think the Republican Party is afraid to lead on this issue.
I don't have anything to do with the Republican Party.
Let me ask Garrett, though, real quick, though. It would seem to me that you would want people like Dave Agema. You would want, the Democrats would want a Republican National Committee person to talk this because it would help you. Why would you call for his resignation?
Because we don't think that this state should be represented at the highest levels by people who spew this kind of bigotry. This is going to a national stage, and it's making Michigan look good. And like I said at the beginning, it's making it hard for people like Stacey and I to have honest dialogue about these issues.
When you talk about bigotry and racism, it's not just something in the rhetoric, but it's in the consequences or the results of the policies that your party supports. So if you really want to talk about bigotry and racism, let's talk about the fact that the Democrat Party has supported social policies that have left black people disproportionately in poverty, broken down black families, over 16 million black babies aborted. And you can say, you can talk about, you can put that word out there, but let's look at the actual results of the party platforms and the disproportionate impact they're having on black Americans, and then let's talk about racism and bigotry.
You know, I just think it's interesting. You're a minister and representing Christian beliefs. But what I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding is, aren't Christians supposed to love everyone and non-judgmental? Yet you're judging what other people are doing. And for some are feeling that that is full of hate and bigotry, and that it's really dividing politics. That you're using religion to influence politics.
First of all, the idea Really what you're inferencing is what they call separation of church and state. And the idea, our founders did not create a society of freedom from religion. It's freedom of religion. And the second thing is, at the end of the day, yes, we have to love homosexuals. As a minister, I believe that it's my responsibility to offer grace and love to everyone. It's my responsibility to tell them the truth. And the truth is that God didn't create homosexuals to live this way because he made them in our image. You and I are made in God's image. So I love homosexuals as much as I love heterosexuals. But love doesn't mean, in fact, love means I have to tell you the truth. Love means I have a responsibility to help you. I'm styles and using you for political purposes, such as what the Democrat Party is doing with homosexuals and everybody else.
And I would actually like Stacey to answer the question on the table, whether you thought Dave Agema's comments were bigoted comments.
No.
You don't think they were bigoted comments? Well, I can say as somebody who speaks on behalf of the Democratic Party, we do. And we believe that if we're going to build this state based on welcoming tolerance and equality so that we can build Michigan and keep it moving forward, we cannot have party officials on either side that have a pattern of being hostile toward a community here in the state.
If you're concerned about hostility, let's start repealing over regulations in the city of Detroit that are hostile to the employment rate of black teenagers.
Let me get Garrett, though. What about the point, though, that which Detroit's, I think, 95% Democrat, that the Democrats Party have not really been responsive to the needs of Detroiters, for example. I mean, we still have a lot of poverty, high unemployment, undereducation, under workforce. How do you address those issues? Democrat Party's not been very good to Detroit.
Yep, and that's something that my boss, Chairman Lon Johnson, ran on, is saying that we needed to have a Democratic Party that was more inclusive, that was more responsive, not just to Detroit, but to the African-American community and communities across the state. And we need to do constant engagement. We did a meeting in Detroit last Wednesday. 100 activists, 100 black activists, to talk about their issues when the Republican Party was claiming they were doing the same at the same time with Rand Paul in a majority vote crowd.
Let's wrap it up right there. Garrett Arwa of the Democratic Party, Stacey Swimp, minister and an activist as well, commentator as well. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, Michigan's right-to-work law gets compared to slavery. The law's critics have a point. We'll debate that next. Coming up on Let It Rip Weekend.